Cecilia Cass wakes up in the dark of night, ready to escape from her abusive boyfriend, Adrian Griffin. She had given him diazepam to make him sleepy and quietly gathers her things while making sure not to wake him up. She even checks on him through a camera on her phone. Once she's outside, she spots Adrian's dog, Zeus. She takes off his shock collar, but Zeus accidentally bumps into a car, which sets off the alarm. This makes Cecilia panic because she knows Adrian is about to wake up. She dashes out of his house and into the street where her sister, Emily, is waiting in the car. Just as she gets in, Adrian runs after them, yelling for Cecilia to open the door and even breaks the window of Emily's car before they speed away. Later, Adrian discovers the diazepam bottle that Cecilia dropped. 2 weeks later, Cecilia has been living with her childhood friend, Detective James Lanier, and his daughter Sydney. She's been really scared to go outside because she worries that Adrian might find her. James has been trying to encourage her to step out, and she finally makes it to the mailbox. But when she sees a jogger, she panics, thinking it's Adrian, and rushes back inside. Later, Emily comes over to visit, but Cecilia feels uneasy about it, since Adrian knows where Emily lives and might have followed her to find Cecilia. Then, Emily shows Cecilia a news article that says, "Adrian has taken his own life." Cecilia is stunned as she tries to understand the news. She tells Emily and James about how Adrian was really abusive and tried to control her life. He wanted her to have a baby, but Cecilia realized that would make it even harder for her to escape from him. So, she secretly started taking birth control without knowing him. Later, Cecilia and Emily meet with Tom, Adrian's brother and lawyer, who shares a surprising revelation. Adrian's will includes a $5 million fortune left to Cecilia. However, she can only access the money if she shows that she is mentally capable and steer clear of any criminal activity to claim it. Overwhelmed, Cecilia uses the money to express her gratitude. She buys James a new ladder and sets up a college fund for Sydney, leaving both of them deeply touched by her generosity. At night, Cecilia begins to feel really uneasy, like there's someone else in her room. She steps out to find James and Sydney, but they're nowhere to be seen. As she walks outside into the chilly air, she notices someone's breath appearing next to her. The next morning, Cecilia makes breakfast for James and Sydney. However, while she's not looking, something unseen knocks the knife off the counter and then turns up the heat on stove, starting a small fire that Sydney quickly extinguishes. That night, Cecilia is sleeping with Sydney in the same bed. Suddenly, an unseen force yanked the blankets off them and started snapping photos. Cecilia woke up and reached for the covers, but then she noticed what seemed like footprints on the blankets. The footprints creep closer, and suddenly, Cecilia feels a force push her. Panicked, she screams for James, insisting someone else is in the room. However, when James checks it, he finds no one, leaving Cecilia feeling increasingly isolated and terrified. The following day, Cecilia goes to an interview at an architecture company, but when she opens her bag to show her work, she realizes it's totally empty. She begins to feel really anxious and ends up fainting. Cecilia goes to the hospital and gives a blood sample for testing. Later, back at home, she receives a call from the doctor. To her shock, the doctor informs her that her blood report shows dangerously high traces of diazepam in her system. To make things worse, she finds the bottle she accidentally left in James's bathroom, and it has Adrian's bloody fingerprints on it. Later that day, Cecilia and James approach Tom to discuss a troubling situation. They show him a bottle, and Cecilia explains that Adrian is following through on his earlier threat to her, suggesting he can find her no matter where she is, and that he left her a clue. Cecilia believes Adrian, a renowned figure in optics, has somehow found a way to make himself invisible. Tom dismisses her theory, showing her Adrian's urn and crime scene photos to prove that Adrian slashed his wrists, confirming his death. Later, Cecilia visits Emily, but her sister is upset after receiving an email from Cecilia's account. Despite Cecilia's insistence that she didn't write it, Emily refuses to believe her and rejects her claims about Adrian being behind it. As Cecilia returns home, she reads the email and is horrified to find a cruel message, seemingly from Adrian, calling her a traitor and wishing Emily had died instead of him. Sydney walks in and sees Cecilia crying over an email. When she tries to help, an unseen force hits Sydney in the face, making her think Cecilia attacked her. James enters and pulls Sydney away, even though Cecilia is begging and insisting it wasn't her fault. Once they leave, Cecilia challenges Adrian to show himself. She dumps coffee grounds on the floor, setting a trap, and waits for any sign of him. Then, she calls Adrian's phone and hears it ringing in the attic. Determined to find him, she heads upstairs and finds a message from an unknown number. Surprise. Before returning downstairs, Cecilia figures out the invisible man is near. She spills paint in an attempt to reveal him, but when she checks the kitchen, the sink is running, and the paint is mysteriously washed off. Grabbing a knife in self-defense, Cecilia is suddenly grabbed by the invisible man, who chokes her and throws her across the room. She fights back with everything she has, managing to escape the house. Cecilia orders an Uber that drives her to Adrian's place. Once she gets there, she heads straight to his basement. In the basement, she discovers a strange machine and a suit covered in cameras that can turn invisible. This is how Adrian has been sneaking around and scaring her. While trying to escape with the suit, she hides in a closet and notices another set of invisible footprints. Suddenly, she shoves the invisible man aside and dashes back to the car. Cecilia then calls her sister Emily and tells her to meet at a restaurant. At restaurant, as she starts to tell Emily about what she found out about Adrian, a knife suddenly floats in the air between them. Out of nowhere, the invisible man slashes Emily's throat and puts the knife in Cecilia's shocked hands. The other customers panic when they see Emily dead and Cecilia holding the knife. The police show up fast and arrest her. They take her to a mental hospital while she screams that Adrian is the one who killed Emily, but they strap her down and give her medicine to calm her. She feels Adrian is nearby, especially when she hears a voice mockingly say, "Surprise." Later, Cecilia is being questioned about the murder of Emily. She tries to defend herself, but she feels like Adrian might be listening in on their conversation. The doctors also tell her that she is pregnant. Tom visits her and offers a deal to help her out of this situation. He tells her she can either share her inheritance with him or go back to Adrian with the baby, since he knows Adrian is still alive and that he switched Cecilia's birth control with something else. In a moment of frustration, Cecilia knocks Tom's things off the table, giving her the chance to grab one of his quill pens and a sticky note. While she's thinking, she hears on the news that it's going to rain in a few days. The next day, it's raining heavily outside. Cecilia is waiting for the right moment and finds the pen she had hidden away. She turns on the shower and loudly declares that she won't let Adrian take the baby. She then starts to cut her wrist with the pen, but then the invisible man suddenly grabs her. In a panic, Cecilia stabs him with the pen, which causes his suit to go haywire. A guard rushes in, but the invisible man zaps him with a taser. Cecilia tries to escape as more guards arrive, but the invisible man viciously takes them out one by one. She manages to grab a gun and heads outside into the pouring rain, where he takes down another guard. They face off, and the invisible man threatens to kill Sydney. In a hurry, Cecilia jumps into a car and calls James to come back to the house. The invisible man shows up and starts attacking Sydney, but James comes to help and ends up getting hurt badly. Then, Cecilia arrives and sprays him with a fire extinguisher before shooting him 4 times. He stumbles around before finally collapsing and dying. When Cecilia takes off his mask, she discovers that it was Tom inside the suit. Meanwhile, a SWAT team breaks into Adrian's house. The police finds Adrian in the house, tied up, thinking he's been kidnapped by Tom. At the police station, Detective James informs Cecilia that Adrian has been found tied up in his basement. He assures her that she is innocent, as the police believe Adrian was just a pawn in Tom's scheme. However, Cecilia knows the truth. Adrian had been plotting everything from the start, even using his brother as a scapegoat. Later, Cecilia contacts Adrian to arrange a meeting. Cecilia arrives at Adrian's house for a dinner he organized. Outside, James is eavesdropping, hoping Cecilia will get Adrian to say something that could get him in trouble. They are sitting right in front of a security camera. Cecilia tells Adrian that he can't have the baby, but he tries to act charming and nice to her. She then says she needs to go to the bathroom. A little while later, while Adrian is alone, he suddenly raises a knife and slashes his own throat. When Cecilia comes back, she pretends to cry for the camera, but it's obvious she used his suit to set him up. James rushes in, but even though he sees the suit in her bag, Cecilia insists that Adrian killed himself, and James feels like he has to believe her. Cecilia walks away with Zeus, finally free. In this way, movie ends here. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more interesting movie recaps.